Hi, it's Odeean here. Today I've got the FansToys FT-05 Soar from the Iron Dinobots collection, number 2. This is their version of a masterpiece third-party Swoop. I do like the artwork on the box. The artwork a little bit doesn't say Swoop to me. I don't know, the face seems a little bit off, but it is a nice piece of artwork nonetheless. Turning him around, kind of retro lettering on the box, I like that. On the back, some photos of Swoop/Soar and this little blurb. Let's open it up. This is very, very good packaging. Before I get too far ahead of myself, we get the little booklet. There's a card in there. Don't care about cards or books. I bought it from Chimungmung, so he sticks in a sticker sheet, which is cool. Awesome 3 layers of polystyrene goodness to keep my box nice and strong. I can stack tons of things on top of this. Very strong. The first layer has the figure itself in there, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But the second layer, which is something we haven't seen before, holds basically the stand and a few other bits and pieces. It does come with a big and good stand, so I'll show that a bit later as well. Soar is packed a little bit oddly in the box. If I bend it down here, you'll see his feet have been retracted, his hands are retracted, and even his neck is sort of in a weird position, tilting down. So it looks like it's not meant to be that way, but that is how it ships, and it does fit exactly. I think this was all, they just had to configure it however they could to be able to get these 3 layers in. The guns / missiles just go over the wings in their own little slots too. Once we get it out of the box, we want to put the foot into this position for display. It's tucked in. You're going to have to bend this up. Listen to this. Man, that panel is so ratcheted. That's an awesome ratchet just for a random panel. The feet can come down like this. I guess if you wanted, you can make them more forward, but I think that the backwards position is going to be a good thing for balance. Let's close that up. And then it locks in. That is such a sweet ratchet. Oh my god. The fists are in here. Now that is kind of, it has a detent in it, but it's not the same kind of ratchet. Look, my fingernails are just cut. I cannot open that. I'm going to grab a screwdriver. Now that he's all set up, I'll show some of the posability. The elbow joint is double jointed, which gives a good range, but it does feel like you can see how it's flopping there. There's not much friction. Just a pin joint in one of those double joints. The bottom one is much stronger, so I mean in that orientation you can see that is holding its spot, but the top one is a little bit floppy, so you can get a good thing, but there may be some poses where it just doesn't want to hold. Is it the same on both sides? No, this side is much more stiff, so I guess it's going to vary from figure to figure. Maybe yours won't do that at all. The fists are fully articulated with every finger having its own joints. So there's one finger and another finger and another finger and another finger, with finally the thumb being on a ball. We've got a slot on the inside. So if I grab this, is that the right way? Should be able to get this in. What's going on here? There we go. Oh no, almost. You know what it is? The plastic feels a little bit tight. It's like the sword, it goes in the hole, but then it gets forced back out again. It's like it's being rejected. It may need a little bit of filing, but because this is chromed, that's not going to look good. I might just try doing it on the other hand. Maybe that one will fit a little bit better. Now, I mean, because the fingers are so tight, you can see I even have to pry them open like that. If it doesn't fit in, I'm guessing I might be able to just make him grab it without the slot in use, but hopefully this one will fit. No, same problem. So, okay, that tab is pretty much useless. What I've done now is I've held it into that slot, stopped it from popping out, and then closed the fingers. At the moment, the fingers are so tight that it holds it in there. That's very solid. Over time, as the pins, the friction just wears off some of the finger joint there, they're going to become looser, and then that's when we're going to get an issue with this sword, and it's going to need to be filed. But if I don't use it much, for the time being, it is pretty good. You can hold the missile launcher. Well, I say missile launcher, it doesn't actually come out, it just looks like the missile launcher. You can hold that in the fist by pushing down a little tab. I wonder if this is going to tab in any better. Now that one just tabs in straight away, so it's definitely doable. Just at the sword, maybe because the sword is chromed, it made it a little bit thicker. When you get just this black plastic in black plastic here, it seems to hold it perfectly. There is also this peg on the back of the sword, so when you're sick of holding it, he can just stick it on there, which is a nice touch. Let's continue with articulation. The wings, you can do all kinds of stuff with these, so they can move up and down a little bit and backwards and forwards, so you can get them in good spots however you'd like them. The shoulders, quite large range, but again, it seems to be just a pin in there, and I'm a bit worried that that's going to flop because this is die cast metal up here, quite heavy. Plastic here, but the top part is die cast. I hope that doesn't become loose. Like if it was like that, that would be a real bummer. Let's feel the other side. That's pretty tight. We get backwards and forwards, no detents, just friction. You can hear the plastic rubbing on more die cast there. It's adequate. I don't think that's ever going to be an issue. What about waist? We do have waist. Let's see what's going on there. Now, if you lift the nose a bit, you get a lot more rotation. So it's a bit of a kludge, but it can look good from some angles. I probably won't use it that much, but at least it's there. The head is on this weird kind of chicken effect here. I don't know, maybe that's got something to do with transformation. We'll have a bit more of a look at that later on. Friction base, and then clicky backwards and forwards. But a rotation, this seems to pop out. This is kind of a little locking tab. It's meant to keep the leg in, but it does pop out quite a bit. Well, that's a good double joint. You can see little pistons in there. That's pretty cool. That's a nice touch. And there goes that thing again, always popping out. And finally back down to the feet. Very good for articulation. As Soar comes in the box, he does have full-on chrome on his wings. I do like it, and it does match with Scoria, but if you don't like it so much, or maybe you want just less glare for your photos, they have included an awesome set of matte silver wings with the same paint detailing, just not as glary. I quite like it, and I think I'm going to pop this on now and see how it looks. It's pretty good. In person, it seems to be a little bit better than it's showing up on camera. The details to my eye pop a little bit more, and you get more of a view of this black section that shows up more now that there's not so much glare. I'm still undecided how it's going to stay. One thing I will say that you should be aware of is that there are 3 little screws on the back. Now you have to unscrew the 3 screws, take off this panel and just slot the wing in. There's nothing wrong with this setup. It's a good setup, but it's a little screwing into plastic. So if you do it too tight or too many times, it's going to strip that thread, and then you're going to have some real problems. So I suggest just find the one that you like best and leave it that way, because more than a few goes, you're going to really end up wrecking that. Another alternate part we get is this bird beak. So my G1 toy had a see-through nose/beak on the front of Swoop. So I'm pretty sure that this gold chromed part here is going to be replaceable with this. Let's see how that works. So there it is. It's the same deal. 3 screws. They're inside this beak, which is a little bit hard to pry out in robot mode. But it's a ratcheted beak, comes down. 3 screws underneath. The little chrome plated eye section is a separate piece that slots up into that see-through head, so you still get the eye. I'm a big fan of the see-through look. The G1 toy I really liked, but I feel like on this it is a little bit incoherent. It makes the design not pop as much. because the chrome is still present in the other 4 locations here. To take it out of the middle just takes something away from the figure, so it looks a bit off. I'm going to have a look at it, see what it looks like in Dino mode before I decide whether I'm going to keep it on or not, but just for robot mode I don't really like it so much. Now the part that we removed is very, very chrome plated, and I worry that that's going to rub off. Now on the underside I can't see any white plastic showing through there, so I don't know what the color is underneath. I don't know if the chrome goes the whole way through. I think what I'm going to do is just scratch this so we can see. Yep, it's grey plastic. Underneath this chrome is a grey plastic, so you do want to be careful of picking these up and taking them off all the time, because over time that chrome is going to go, just like a lot of my G1 stuff all wrecked. Speaking about G1, I actually don't have a G1 Swoop to compare this to. To pay for this, I sold my G1 Dinobots. They were in pretty bad condition and I didn't want them anymore, seeing as how I'm getting so many other Dinobots these days. So poor old G1 Swoop actually went to buy this new version. Time for comparison. Here he is with Scoria. They look fantastic together. So much chrome in one spot. Look at that, very shiny. Of course there's a lot of lights here bouncing off. If you just put them on the shelf they look pretty good. Soar obviously is a lot thinner than Scoria when you look at it from the side, but you know, Scoria's no slob. His backpack does pack down nice and compact when you get the transformation correct, but Swoop here, he's just got nothing much hanging out there. But that's, you know, fits with the animation model too. They both have a lot of heft. I mean, so much die cast in these two toys. Here he is with MP10. Look at them, eye to eye. Very similar build too. So the weakest Dinobot still has a build comparable to the strongest Autobot, which really says something about how strong these guys are. And here's our new Swoop with the weakest Autobot, little Bumblebee, who really only comes up to right about the knee on Soar. Very tiny indeed. Then with one of the MP cars, there's Lambor. About halfway through the bird beak. I like that scale. And finally, another third-party Dinobot, our Toy World. God, I've forgotten his name. What is it? Raw? Anyway, it's supposed to be Snarl. So when you see these guys together, definitely Toy World's offerings are not masterpiece scale. Look at that, very small. I love this. I'm getting all of these, but I'm glad to have 2 sets. The size is just so different. Let's go with the transformation. Let's take off weapons. Let's cover the basics. Let's get the foot back in, seeing as how we already did that at the start of the video. I'm just going to pop that up, condense it back down. Same thing on the other side. Let's get these hands back into their slots. Make sure that the fist is neatly transformed so you don't cause any blockages later on. Same thing on the other side. Last thing you want is a finger to get jammed in there. Now we're going to condense the bicep like this. You can hear there's some detents in there, so they stay where you put them. Now we're going to lock the dino face, the dino head, into the robot head. Let's pry this up. Sorry, no fingernails. It's just going to get like this, and you can see in there it's like a locking peg. There's one on each side. Once you push that in, it locks it together so that you're free to ratchet it up like that. Then he's got full articulation. Condense this chest section in like that. Before I get to the legs, there's different ways to do this. Before I condensed that, you could have rotated it 90 degrees. I prefer it this way because careful not to break it. When you have it this way, which is how the box art I think shows it, you get a bit of this wobbliness happening, which I don't really like. Next, we want to grab these little latches. There's one on each side. Bend them up. That lets this move freely. Pry open this. Normally you can just do that and it will come out. Now we're going to bend this around, and you can see there's little slots here and tabs here. You just want to get this joint so that it's at 90 degrees so I can reach it. There we go, 90 degrees. That's it, like that. Now this is free to move. It's like little bird feet. I've seen this thing here. I don't really know what that does. I can't find a spot for it to go in. Do the same on the other side. Here's what the knee looks like on the inside. There's a tiny little cavity in that die-cast section. And what goes there is this spring and ratchet tooth. So I'm going to get a little bit of grease and put it on there because that will help it get past that very big blocky ratchet tooth. Now the success, if I'm careful, it can ratchet down into that position, whereas that's where I wanted it to be. So anyway, let's continue with the transformation now that that's out of the way. Just got to get those tabs into those slots. Make sure that's at 90 degrees. It's still not at 90 degrees. That's one hard joint, I tell you. But at least it functions now. So just got to be careful I don't stress it out too much. That's it. It's done. Fold out the wings. It's done. Very beautiful. If you're careful, you can get it to balance by itself without the stand. It's a little bit precarious. I mean, if I give it a bit of a jiggle, that's what's going to happen. That's because there's virtually no friction in these ankle joints. I mean, we do get this section here, but it also has virtually no friction. I'm not really sure what point that serves, but we don't need to stand it up on its own because it does come with a stand. The stand is very robust, nice and clear, and slots together super easy, just like that. The stand is also very high. Where's this guy? If I stand him here, you can see that Swoop can hover just above the head of the other Dinobots, which is really useful, much better than if it was just some low thing. Let me pick the camera up a little bit. It plugs in rock solid into his chest there. Like, I'm not in any kind of worry that that's going to fall over. The base is quite wide, so it's a good stand. I would have paid good money to buy a stand. It's very, very good that they put it in. Now, what I said before about the beak, if I just look right at the head, like zoom right in up here and look at the head, I like the way that looks better than the chrome. I think that that looks awesome. But the problem is, put in perspective, when you're looking at the figure as a whole, I don't think the figure as a whole looks better with the see-through beak, and I'm going to put the other beak on right now. One thing to watch out for is the ratcheting mechanism of this. You hear that nice clicky ratchet. There's actually a spring. Now, I didn't realize it before when I was talking about it, but the spring is sitting underneath this panel, and if you're not careful, when you take the top of the head off, you're going to lose that spring. So keep your eyes open for it. Don't let it shoot off. And if anything, this beak is too ratcheted. It can be a little bit hard to open. He doesn't have a separate piece in there as a fire breathing gimmick like the other guys, but it does look nice. One thing I really like is the huge range of posability of the head. So it's kind of the main feature in Dino mode, because Swoop doesn't have that much going on. He's just got his wing orientation and then how his head is pointing to show what emotion is going on. So they've covered their bases. They definitely gave the wings a good range, and combined with that head being able to move all over the place, just lets him look however you want him to look. My final thoughts. I was of two minds whether I was going to get this Swoop. Originally, I briefly considered getting the Bullsfire Swoop. It was more toy accurate, and it definitely looks toy accurate. I mean, I've looked at pictures of it and pictures of the original G1 art and how the toy looked when I had it. If you like the toy version, then that would be the way to go. But I think this just looks good. This looks very cartoon accurate to me. They've taken some liberties. I'm not convinced that this chest detailing was the best way to go. It does look a little bit too blocky. His shoulder is a bit too blocky in robot mode, but just taken as a whole package, I really like it. The thing that makes this toy is the head. The head looks fantastic, but again, I like the dino head, but the robot head seems a little bit too blocky to me. I think the reason they had to go with such a blocky dino head, robot head, is that it needs to join on to the back of this head, and if they had made it more curved around these edges here, then there wouldn't have been this nice easy seam between the two parts in Dino mode. So it was a good compromise. They worked with what they had. The stand really makes the set. It makes it more impressive. It gives it height. It gives you something to do with the Dino mode, so it's not just standing perched on a shelf. One thing I will say though is if you're going to do a diving pose like this, it's a little bit front heavy and the stand ends a bit too soon. So I wouldn't leave him in a position like this because you're going to end up rocking it off like that. It's a pity you can't, like I'm going to pull this out, you can't turn it around the other way and peg it in that way to get a swooping down pose that's more stable. So you just have to avoid that situation. It's very, very heavy. It's satisfying. You saw the little bit of problem I had with the joint in here, having to lube that up. I didn't have any problems with my scoria. I know a lot of people had various complaints. I pretty much had a perfect scoria. So this is my first QC issue that required some joint modification that I've had with FansToys. Now, I did have a missing part in my Quake Wave, but they sent me that part. So all in all, it's a pretty good experience. That only took me like 5 minutes to fix, so I'm pretty satisfied. It's left me waiting with anticipation for their version of Snarl. I'm not 100% convinced on how their Snarl looks, and with my raw figure from Toy World, I wasn't convinced how their Snarl looked either. I do actually like that huge Snarl. I can't remember the name of the company. The really big one is like $200+ now on BBTS. But the problem is it's so big that he's going to be out of scale with these guys. So I think I'm going to stick with Snarl from FansToys, and that's probably the next thing I'll be reviewing from them. That's been my video review for Soar from FansToys. I'm Odeean, and thank you for watching.